something about Rick loves history, so he went back to Judge O'Connor's playing days at Bellefontaine High, which were, I believe, the early 60s. And we are here to talk a lot of history tonight. Our show is presented by Top of Ohio Radon Services. That's Paul Newland. Paul does a great job. He makes it easy. Radon is the silent killer, and he'll find out if your house has it or not. And if it does have it, he can take care of it and make sure it gets out of your house. Top of Ohio Radon, 937-935-2806. Ann Vogel is with us. She is the retired West Liberty Salem girls cross country coach and girls track coach. And she is, I've been around a lot of coaches, a lot of teams, athletes. I kid her off the air. I'll say it on the air. She's the GOAT. She is the best. And we'll talk a little bit about Ann's career. I'm still kind of surprised she left. I just told her that a few minutes ago. But we're going to talk a lot about West Liberty Salem track and cross country going back, God, probably 50 years plus. Ann, welcome.
Hi, Bill.
How's retirement first?
It's good. I'm finding ways to spend my time. I don't know how I did everything I did and coached at the same time, but it's good. I miss it. I miss the athletes, the girls especially. But it was my time, and I'm at peace with my decision.
How many years cross country?
32.
Gosh, how about track?
Same.
32.
That's a lot of hours. And Jeannie and I were out of town the night they had. I never got to ask you this. I'll call it a surprise party. I think at Ohio Caverns. I think Jason was doing this. Jason Vogel, and did he get you? Were you surprised?
He got me. He did. We went out to eat at Cafe Paradiso in Urbana, and
Yep.
And then Mike Loudon, actually, there are a lot of people involved. Mike Loudon had called me, and if you know Mike, he loves to plan a cross country course. He's starts in June, and every turn, every meter, he's got dialed in. And Mike called me and said, "Hey, I'm thinking about changing the course at the Ohio Caverns. I need you to come out." And I was like, "Mike, are you kidding me?" I was like, "Okay, Mike, I don't think you need to change it, but I'll come." And so. And he goes, "You want to go out to the farm market in West Liberty afterward?" And I go, "Yeah, that'd be fun." And so Jason goes, "Let's go out for dinner." And I said, "Okay." And then he said, they have Dora in Urbana too. So we got done eating. He goes, let's have a drink and sit outside. And I thought that was kind of weird. I'm like, "Okay." He goes, "Well, we got a little time before Mike's going to be at the Caverns." And then we pulled up, and I thought, oh, maybe there were orange and black balloons. And I thought maybe someone was having like a grad party or something there. And then I saw Megan. I saw my daughter and my son-in-law. So I was like, oh, okay, this is, yeah. So they got me.
That was late June, I think.
it was.
Yeah. And Mike Loudon is the boys' cross-country coach and a great coach. When you think of running, at least in this part of the state, maybe all of the state, you think of West Liberty Salem. You think of, sometimes they don't even say the school. They just say the Big Orange.
Right.
Which that's interesting. I don't think of another program where they just say a name other than the school. But it goes back to the 70s, and your late brother was one of the greats, Butch Sauer. And you were there as a spectator. You would have been, I think you said like 7 or 8 grades younger than Butch?
Yes. Yeah. He
Graduated in 78. I graduated in 85.
7 years.
Yeah.
So anyways, let's go back. Rick loves to talk history, so he couldn't make it, but we will talk history. He might be listening to us right now. Let's talk about the West Liberty Salem boys and what they were kind of known for pre-Ken Lehman, who was the man that put them on the map, and then how it all just kind of took off. So before Ken Lehman got there, were they known much in cross country?
From my understanding, and Earl Zillis would have been a good one to invite for this as well, but from my understanding, was it 73? A group of students went to Emerson Brown, our superintendent, who just passed away, and said they wanted a cross-country team. And Emerson said, "Hey, I'll coach it this year." Ken came to West Liberty, got a teaching job. I believe he was a biology, science teacher. And Ken wanted to coach football, and they already had a football coach. So Emerson said, "You're coaching cross-country." So Ken said, "Okay, I'll coach cross country." And within a couple of years, he was winning state titles. And there really should have been 5 state titles. We can talk about that later. But so that was kind of the story, how Ken did it. And then Ken went on to coach collegiately. And Grant Fisher, who won the mile, even the mile or the 5K, whatever he won this year in the Olympics. I forget. Grant's parents were introduced by Ken. Ken introduced Grant's parents, so Ken had kind of a hand in this Olympic champion being born. So,
Well, 1973 is when they had Dan Hess and Charlie Yoder at state. Those two guys were both top 20, 19th and 20th. And then in 1974, this will be the fall when we think of cross country, they had the West Liberty Salem their first top 10 finish. And Gary Phelps and Dwayne Yoder led the way to that top 10 team finish. 1975, this is where junior Butch Sauer makes a splash. This is
5, but yeah, he was a sophomore at 75, but yes.
that's right. You said the class of 78, but he finishes third, I believe.
Not that year, not his sophomore year. I believe he finished third his senior year, Butch did. My dad always, it was a source of pride for my dad. Well, my dad, first of all, he was a ball sport guy, so he could never, in cross country, now we have it automatic timing. You know who wins. You look on your phone as soon as the, race last person finishes, you kind of know who's won the meet. Back then they had to hand score it, and they'd give each finisher a card, and then they'd have to hand score it and take out. So if there was individual runners that didn't count the team scoring, they had to pull them out. So say you were 20th, but there were 5 individual runners. So it took a while to find out. So my dad always joked that it was, what kind of sport is this that you don't know the score at the end of the competition? But my dad would always say, I believe Butch went from I wish I could remember now, but something his freshman year was 60th, went up to 30th, and then was 8th his junior year and 3rd his senior year.
But Butch was one of the real stars. I mean, one of the guys. Who else? As we look at these notes, and Earl Zillis is still a name that's known around here. But who would you kind of say were the nucleus that got it really going?
I think Dan Hess. I remember him. Rich Jordan. So that's he was probably on that first team, and I actually got to coach Rich's nieces later on, the Horsley girls. But those are the names that stick out for me. But Gary, Dwayne, Butch, Earl Zillis, Bruce Hooley, he was on the team. Scott Balker, Kenny Day came on later, who was just, I would argue, the best athlete that's ever walked the halls of West Liberty Salem. He played, obviously his basketball was a sport. He was a great golfer, great. He played football, baseball, track. Kenny could do pretty much everything. Probably still can. I know I'm missing out on some people, which I've been.
Corey Frost, yes, of course.
The
Friend, the late great Corey Frost. Yeah, he was one too, and he was one that really kind of. I don't think he ran. He wasn't even on the varsity team his freshman year because they were just so good and they were so deep. So Corey Frost, who was this phenomenal All-Ohio runner, wasn't even on varsity his freshman year. So, so they had some really good teams. And one year they won without Earl. Butch's senior year, Earl's sophomore year, he had a stress fracture, and they actually won state without Earl. So if you can imagine that's how deep they were.
We're going to talk about the runners of West Liberty Salem, the boys cross country here, and just we'll get back to that in a second. You're listening to In the Garage here at the Craft Emporium in downtown Bell Fountain. But to be great, you have to have a few things: great families, great support, great administration, a great coach, and great athletes, obviously. But the great coach I want to focus on right now, Ann. What did Ken? This is interesting to me. Ken Lehman didn't know anything about cross country when he got the job, and within a couple of years, they're like one of the best ones in the whole state. So, what was this guy's secret sauce?
I remember Ken first as a Little League baseball coach. He was Butch's Little League baseball coach, and they won games then. Ken really got everyone involved. I remember the moms had, we were at Quincy. I think it was playing for the Logan County championship. Moms had signs. It was a well-organized machine. But Ken was just a very good motivator, and he knew how to bring people together for a common cause. That's what I would say about Ken, that he just, he was a lifelong learner. I think he was obviously a quick study. But he was able to find guys in the hallway that weren't playing football. Back then there was football and there was golf, and not a whole lot of people golfed. So, they're not playing football, but you're a gangly looking farm boy, you should run cross country. And, he had that ability to let people or help people believe in themselves, that they could do great things. There was just no doubt in their mind that they were going to win state. They knew it. And this is a story, Ron Martin, who coached at Caldwell, who won several state titles. Butch's So the year after Butch graduated, so it had been the 78, Caldwell was supposed to, they had the six pack. They only had 6 guys on their team, but they were nationally ranked. They were phenomenal. And Bruce Hooley he was at Ohio State and found an article about the 6 pack, the team, Caldwell's team, made copies of it and they posted them all the guys' duffel bags. So they showed up, West Liberty shows up with these duffel bags, like kind of making fun of the 6 pack, and they went on and beat them. And then fast forward to 2010, Ron Martin has a cross country camp, and I was told this is a great camp. You got to get your girls in there. So I call Ron. I said, hey, we really want in your camp. And he goes, well, I don't know. He really was not going to let us in because of what those boys did back in 78.
Yeah.
Wow.
Then we ended up being great friends.
And he's a great supporter of our program. But yeah, so neat story. But I believe, going back to Ken, though, he was a motivator. I mean, my mom still has letters that he wrote to the boys, and it was a generic letter. He had that ditto copy back in the day, that purpley blue. He'd make copies, but at the bottom he'd write like individual notes for everyone. And that made me want to run and be competitive, because he was just a great motivator.
It was like a little bit like Ann Vogel, just one's doing the boys and one's doing the girls team. But obviously had some really good runners. Because you went to watch these meets. I know your parents were there. Butch, your brother who passed, was such a great runner. But what did the guys, were they just good at it? Like, what happened?
What I remember about them is that they were just gutsy. Like, when they were running the last 400 meters, there wasn't anyone on that team that was dogging it. They were sprinting to that finish line. They were gutsy. There was just this inner strength they had, and that came from Ken, I believe, but they were just gutsy runners, and they were fearless, and it was fun to watch them. I mean, you knew the last 400 meters, if it was someone from West Liberty against someone, back in the day, Sidney Lehman had a good cross-country team. If it was that, we knew the West Liberty guys were going to win or beat the other guy. Or they'd come from behind, Butch ran one time without a shoe and ended up winning a race. There was this aura about them, and I was a kid, so my perspective is coming from a 10-year-old girl, and my big brother ran, and all those guys were like my big brothers. Corey even said I was like the annoying little sister, but it was just a special time. And the parents, I just talked to you about that. The parents all showed up. We caravan to Scarlet and Gray Golf Course, and everyone dressed up. My dad had on nice slacks. You go to a cross country meet now, you're wearing your sweats, your trainers, your sweatshirt, whatever. My mom wore nice slacks, a sweater. My dad wore his nice slacks, top coat, a fedora. You dressed up to go to, you were going to Columbus, so you dressed up. So it was just it was a special time. And growing up, it was just so much fun to watch.
You have a real connection with Butch. What did he say about this? Was there much talk about if it was a big meet night or after a postseason race? Did he say much to you about? I know you were quite a bit younger, but was much.
Oh yeah, my Butch didn't even go to prom like his junior and senior year because he didn't want to lose any sleep. That's how serious he was about it. But one thing, my parents were not. They were not helicopter parents at all. They were happy for Butch. They were excited, but they had other things going on in life, and so I think that made it easy too. There wasn't any pressure at home. It was just more excitement and ready to watch the next race and see how everyone does.
State title 76.
Correct. We should have.
75. Right after back then it was the sectional district and state meet. Now it's district, regional, state. After the district meet, Dwayne Yoder, his brother Wayne, and Wayne Yoder is Lee, our great quarterback's dad. So Dwayne would be Lee's uncle. Steve Yoder. So those two brothers, a cousin, my brother Butch. They dropped Butch off and maybe a friend at our house and went across 68 on 30 and had a car accident. And so Dwayne was out. And that cost us the state title.
Could have been 5 in a row.
It should have been 5.
I know the Bellefontaine Examiner did a story. Well, it's been a while ago. I don't know, 10, 15 years ago. Like the best team in sports history.
Right.
And they named this team, the Big Orange guys, the team might have been like the team of the century. I can't remember what.
It was in 2000.
So wasn't it Team of the Century or something like that?
It may have been 2000, but this was like the team of the century when you look at success. Now, you follow a lot of the sports. You might be a little biased here with your family, but would this be a worthy choice as the best team?
What other teams in our area have won 4 state titles in a row? It's yeah, nobody. So, I mean, I think the ball sport people might argue that, Colby Furlong, my brother-in-law, might argue that.
Well,
But
I mean, they were good. They were really, really good. They're 2 of those years that they won when my brother ran, and I can't speak for the other 2 years. They would have won. It was AAA, double A, single A. So single A was small school, AAA big school. They would have won the AAA meet if you would have plugged in the numbers. So they were really good.
guys, right there. I mean, so Butch graduates in '78. So Butch gets to be a team 2-time state champ. Guys in '77, which would have been Butch's senior year, Butch Sauer, that is. He got third. Jeff Parker, 11th. Ken Day, 12th. This is all in Coach Reed's notes. Mark Plank, 15th. Bruce Hooley, 18th. Corey Frost, 19th. So not only did they have an eliteness, they really did have that pack too. I mean, they were all
Their top 5 are in the top 20. That's, yeah.
a guy that's, if you talk running, I think he's pretty well known. Be interesting who's the most well-known running name around here. Coach Vogel will be right up there. But Earl Zillis, when did he break into the scene?
Earl was 2 years younger than Bush.
So he would have been, yeah, he graduated in 80. Is that right? Yeah. Yeah, he graduated in 80. Earl, if you're listening, call me if you mess up. Come on up, Earl. But, and Earl missed his sophomore year. He had a stress fracture and didn't run. So my brother's senior year, Earl was not on that team. He was on the team, but he didn't run at state.
He was a junior. He wins the state title. It's a state record. Corey Frost was second. Ken Day was sixth. Mark Plank was seventh. Jeff Parker was 19th. I mean, just sounds like they just keep actually getting better as time goes by here. Was that their best team?
That's when it cracked into the 2.5 miles, and I hear my phone beeping, so it's probably Earl. So you'd have to ask Ken that question, Ken Lehman or Earl. They were so good and so deep. I don't.
Well, it's 79. Earl Zillis and Corey Frost go 1-2 again. So
Yeah, and I don't know.
Teams. Yeah. Yeah. I don't. I mean,
photo finish.
1-2.
But Ken Day 7th, Gary King 12th, Dan Bragg was 19th. So again, they just keep doing it.
Calvary right now.
Oh yeah, I know who you mean. Yeah.
and one of his sons I know ran at the Air Force Academy.
A lot of these guys were great in track as well. Earl Zillis, I think, won 3 individual titles in track. What I don't know if Butch do track? Right?
Yes, he did track.
Okay, what was the track team known for?
For distance, and back then they didn't have the 4x800 relay. If they would have had that relay, they would have probably cleaned up in that as well. So they didn't win. I can't speak to like where they placed in state. They never won state in track, but I know Butch's senior year he was second in the 2 mile. Earl was third. Earl went on to win state titles in the mile and the 2 mile. Corey, was always right behind Earl. But Corey actually has our school record in the mile. Right? Yeah, Corey does have that record still. I should have brought that.
20-ish for
Probably faster.
410.
I don't know. That's horrible. The girls stuff I can remember. The boys stuff I don't pay as much attention to be honest.
So Ken Lehman, was he at West Liberty Salem very long?
No, he was such a good coach that the colleges started calling. So he went out to Houston. That last year so in '80 he went on and went to coach at the University of Houston.
For a few years, ended up at Arizona State, and I again I was so young, but I think maybe that's where he finished up at Arizona State. He might have gone somewhere else as well, but.
Grabbing my phone.
So we got live on the air research going on here. So really good in track, but elite in cross country, I guess.
Cross country was, and the thing is, you can only have two people per event once you get to the postseason. So, I mean, we had guys that probably were really great milers or 2 milers that were behind Corey and Earl, so they didn't even get a chance to compete in the postseason.
So then the girls cross country got started. Were you on like the first team or one of the first?
I was on the first team, and that was 1982, fall of 1982. So my sophomore year, we had the first. They had 2 girls that ran the year, my freshman year, but they didn't have a full team, so I played volleyball for whatever reason. I don't know. Kids do dumb things when they're teenagers, right?
Hey, maybe you would have been really good if you would have gone there.
Volleyball's fun, actually, but yeah. So
Somebody that's got to be close to your age is Maria Newcomer.
Right, Maria was a year older than me.
She was a state champ.
she was,
State champ. Yep, in cross country.
and went on to be a state champ in track too, in the 3,200, 2 mile. Yeah,
3,200 here.
Yeah, and she was on. We were on the 4x8 relay together.
there, which we got third one year. I think we had the 4th slowest time coming in and ended up in 3rd place. That was fun. But and Earl was our coach at that time. Yeah, Earl coached us.
Young.
Yeah, and he was the coach of the cross
Country team too.
So then you don't like to talk about this stuff, but I'm going to talk about you with your athletic prowess. You were really good in cross country and track too. And looking at your track notes, and this was with some of your teammates. The 4x8 got 4th in the state. That would be Coach Vogel, Susan Day, Lynn
Lytle.
Lytle, and Maria Newcomer. And then that 3 of those same. The next year would be Ann Vogel, Susan Day, Maria Newcomer, and Becky Brandt.
Right, it was Becky Mayo.
Oh, yep.
And how
Jackson was third. I think.
With Becky, my junior year, we were 3rd.
you got to see cross country and track for the girls, because sometimes it's the way it goes. Unfortunately, sometimes the girls' sports don't start at the same time as the guys. I think they've tried to even that up a little bit better now than maybe back when you were in school. But how is it different now with the girls and just the recognition compared to when you started? Like you guys were pioneers. Was there much buzz about how good you were? Or was there much?
When I was in high school, yeah, I mean, I think people knew we were solid. I mean, it's so funny back then. I don't know. We just did our job, and I don't know that we thought about the buzz, to be honest. Or at least I didn't. I mean, I loved competing, but whether we got buzz or not, I don't know if people thought about that at all.
You were in high school. Did it ever come across your mind that you might be a coach someday?
Although looking back, it was obvious. I mean, now that I think about it, I mean, I was the one that always wrote notes to my teammates. I would, on meet day, I'd get to school a little early and put notes on everyone's locker and do stuff like that. So now that I think about it, I mean, I thought, I went to Bowling Green and thought I was gonna work at some PR firm in Chicago. I don't know what I thought, but again, kids are dumb. Not all kids. Sorry if my kids are listening, but but yeah. But I think really it was there, and my dad, he was never a coach, but he coached like Butch, myself. I mean, there was always something going on in the backyard, whether it was wiffle ball or croquet or competitions running barefoot on the stone driveway. I mean, Dad was always, kind of cheering us on to compete. We'd have headstand competitions, and so my dad was always instigating that.
You started cross country in the fall of '93. Is that right?
94. Well, I coached in 92. I coached 92 and 93. I coached middle school cross country, and I was pregnant with Matt the first year I coached, and then in '94 I had Megan in August, so I didn't coach cross country that year. So I guess maybe I only coached 31 years in cross. That could be possible.
You put so much into it. I mean, I'm a big believer in there is no substitute for hard work, and you get out of something and what you put into it. If you don't put much into it, you're probably not going to be very good. Now there's exceptions, but that's a pretty good barometer, I think. Did you know early on that you really loved, like, did this coaching click right away?
did. I was how I even came about coaching. I didn't think I was going to be a coach. I came back home from college. I was working at my dad's real estate office, engaged to Jason, and Louise Dunham, who was the AD at the time, one of my basketball, volleyball coaches as a kid. She called, and the girls' track coach, Jerry Hertzler, who I went to school with, had gotten a job for the following school year. So this was 92. So this was probably January, February 92. He got a job in Virginia and decided he didn't want to coach track that spring because he was getting ready to move. And they were kind of desperate. And she said, will you coach? And I was like, well, I'm getting married in May. And she's like, that's okay. Larry Steiner can cover that meet for you. And don't worry about that. We really need someone. And I really thought it was a temporary thing. But then I really fell in love with it. I'm a competitor. Everything I do, I like to compete in some fashion, but I didn't realize I was going to love it so much.
See any similarities? I am the man of 1,000 questions, so this is kind of easy for me right now. Oh, well, so not everybody does. Jeannie might give a different answer at times, but where I get on a little rant here, but this is all good stuff. Do you see any, because we talked a lot, I've never asked you some of these things. Do you see any similarities with your success and how you did it and why it worked between Coach Ann Vogel, Coach Ken Lehman?
Oh, sure. I think some of the things, that's how I learned. Ken was my coach. He had us running, I'd run like in 4th and 5th grade. I would go to cross-country meets. There was a group of us. Susan Day was one of them. And we would run in the middle school races, but we weren't allowed to go through the chute because we weren't technically in middle school. So we'd run, and then as soon as we get to the finish line, we'd dart off to the side. So, those letters he wrote, I would read over those, and the way he organized practice and the way he motivated people, I think I learned a lot from Ken. So I think that was part of it.
It's pretty early on. Pretty much.
The coach? No, I think we struggled some, especially in track. I just thought when I was in high school, you won the conference title. That's just what we did. There was no question. And we didn't win. Ben Logan killed us the first year. And softball had come into play because when I ran, we didn't have softball in high school. So you're competing against that. And that's softball is a popular sport. That was the first organized sport I played growing up. And so we had that kind of competition. So it really, I learned quickly that you had to, and I wasn't in the buildings, I wasn't a teacher. So I had to get to know kids. And even though I grew up in West Liberty, it's funny how just, 4 years away from a community, there's different people that move in, different people in the school. So I didn't know everyone. So I learned quickly that I had to recruit, get to know families, and I really promoted the team. That was big. And I think that's what Ken did as well. Ken, the Big Orange thing, when it was Jerry Turner who was, I believe, he was the one that coined the Big Orange because he said they came down and Big Orange. So when Ken got that Big Orange, he was all about it. And they had cool uniforms. And I'm a big believer in cool uniforms. We have so many uniforms. It's funny because I just keep buying them thanks to Jason. But I'm a believer in that. So he promoted that program, and I learned a lot from that. Like, you've got to promote your program and get kids to see that looks cool. I want to be a part of that, or I want to wear that uniform, or be a part of that community where I feel like it's family. So I think Ken did that. I think I did that as well.
Well, when we look at your resume, if I say something that's not exactly right with the numbers, you correct us. Cross country, you did it for 31 or 32 years, 26 conference titles. That's amazing. 10 district titles. There's some schools that don't have 10 district titles in all the sports for guys or girls. Really, that's true. It's hard to win district titles. 9 regional titles. Now, if you're a regional champ, if you're not familiar how this goes, that means you would be one of the, before we get to the state meet, in theory, one of the top 4 teams in the state because there's 4 regions. So if you win a regional championship, you're right there. You're right there at the very top in the state. Then at state and cross country, the team was runner-up in 2019.
Yes.
Yeah. We won in 2020. Yeah, we were first place in 2020. Yep. Yeah.
Or that would have been during.
Right after COVID.
Yeah,
We were sweating it whether we could have a season, and we had this weird, you had to go up to the starting line. You can only go to the starting line 10 minutes before the race, and then you had to have a mask on, and then you had to take the mask off when the official told you to, and you had to have a basket or something for the masks. I mean, talk about stress on the athletes. I mean, that's stressful. And you're trying to, I mean, that they could warm up and be away from the starting line without a mask on. They were allowed to do that. But once they got into the group, which was just the dumbest thing, because from what I understand, no one, and I'm a believer in vaccines and that COVID was real, and I know someone that passed away from COVID, but no one got COVID from running cross country.
we could do a whole show on COVID, and it's real. Millions of people died. But what I would say back to that, and I've never asked you this, so this is on the fly. What person you know that was like in their teens that really got sick? I don't know any.
Girls on my team that had COVID. I mean, that year, yeah, but
Like, messed up. Oh, yeah. I mean,
I didn't know any personally. I don't want to upset anyone. I didn't know anyone person. Right, yeah.
so
And I'm sure people that are more at risk with other health factors could have gotten it, but yeah, I didn't.
the mass numbers. It was not. It was a big thing. Certainly big if you were compromised. Certainly big if you're older. But for like teenagers, I don't know anybody that really got sick.
Remember, they had to watch like anyone, sitting together at lunch. If someone got it, the administration would have to watch a video. They had, videos in the cafeteria, like this person sat by this person for 5 minutes or whatever. If they were 5 minutes, it was fine. If it was 8 minutes, they had to be quarantined. It was nuts. I mean, I was like, my girls, I was like, oh, I wish you guys could just stay home from school.
Up at 19, state champ in 20. Any other top 3 or 4 finishes you remember?
Had, gosh, quite a few top 10 finishes. We were third my final year of coaching, so that would have been 23. We were fourth in 22. We were fourth a couple times, third a couple. Megan was on a team that was third. Megan's freshman year, we were fifth with I don't know why my mom's calling me from Green Hills because she knows I'm. No, I'm joking. She knows I'm on the air. She's probably going, "What are you doing?" Oh shoot!
She's probably complaining about it.
But so yeah, we had quite a few. I don't off the top of my head. I am not a big like Mike Loudon can tell you every exact stat, and we had several top 10 finishes, top 5 even.
Years where maybe they did better than what, because cross country, I think guys like Ben Davis, they can stack up all these numbers and say, well, about this. They kind of almost have it forecast in their mind before they get there. Did you have some years where maybe you did a little better at the state than you thought your team would, and maybe not quite as well as what you thought?
Both. I mean, I remember that Megan's freshman year, we went to state with 6 freshmen and a junior. And our region was loaded. For whatever reason, the OHSAA brought down to the Troy Regional Ashland Crestview, Attica Seneca East, who was the number 1 ranked team in the state, and then you had Minster, Fort Laramie, Versailles. I mean, it was just so low, and we were a top 10 team. We were a really good team, but I was like, we're not going to. Well, Attica Seneca East, their top runner was sick, so we ended up beating them, and maybe Versailles didn't make it out, and we ended up getting third at the region. And I thought, if I would been happy with 6, like in any other region, I knew we would have gone to state, but it was and then we ended up 5th at state, and I missed 6 freshmen that were, I mean, they look like middle schoolers for the most part, but.
Translate? Like, can you tell of like from I know they're different courses, but can you tell if you have a dominant regional team, or you're like, well, we should get at least the top 3 at the state?
I mean, it does. There's so many factors because I don't think Troy's course, it's usually a little slower than Tiffin's course is fast. But Tiffin might have had a torrential downpour the night before, and Troy's somewhat dry. So so it's really hard to tell. I mean, and I always tell the girls, Mike really digs into that, but I'm just like, you know what? It doesn't matter what they did at regional, at state. You gotta go out and give it your best, and I try to live in the moment.
The other thing that you did, even more than Coach Lehman, now he just got a big job promotion, went to the University of Houston, so he just wasn't here that long. You were here a long time, is you had longevity. And when I've talked to a lot of coaches over the years, that some of them say it's the proudest thing they ever have because it's truly a program. Yeah, maybe we could get a dominant guy or two for a couple of years, but what happens after they graduate? Well, you would have all these good runners graduate, and the team would just reload. How did that happen?
I think it's our community is part of it, and gosh, I worked really hard to recruit kids and to make it fun. And cross country is obviously not fun because in the summer, we're training at 7 in the morning, and we have meets sometimes where it's 95. We don't run till noon on a Saturday, and it's 90 degrees. I mean, it's challenging, but we just made it a family. And there are girls now. I mean, they're running indoor and stuff, and they send me. There are 6 of them that are at the same meet, and they'll send me a picture. I mean, it was something that was important to them to be a part of that family, and you know, Malia, let's say Caitlin Stapleton, Mallory Bostick looked up to Caitlin, and Malia Miller looks up to Mallory Bostick, and there's this cycle of girls, and it takes a special kid, and I think there's stats that show cross country kids especially have above average GPAs compared to kids in other sports.
Discipline.
So that's part of it.
Kind of grinders, I call them.
Those kids.
And you get those kids that, some of my favorite athletes are not the ones that ran. I mean, I love the kids, obviously, that ran in the 18 minutes, but, the girls that started out running 26 minutes and ended up getting their time down to 22 or 21. And most of those kids, I mean, there was a run, I think one year I had 6 years in a row, I had a valedictorian. It wasn't me, obviously. I didn't have them, but our program had a valedictorian, but they loved to see that improvement, and it was something they can physically, tangibly see. In baseball, your stats might, and I'm not picking on any sport, but my stats were better. I had more RBIs this year and I shouldn't talk baseball. I don't know it very well, but cross country, you physically see it and feel it, and you put in that work, and it doesn't matter what your team does. I mean, you want your team to do well, but individually you can improve yourself. And that was one thing I really found out early on. Now, I wanted to win. Like I said, we didn't win a conference title our first year. But I found out that you really have to get those athletes to believe in themselves. And I had to mold them to the point that, I can do this. I can run this 800 hard. I can beat Susie Smith, and that was a big part of it, I think, as well.
What's the word he say? When I look back over the last 30 years plus, where a lot of the girls' sports throughout the school year were good, and you were fall, spring, and there aren't that many. Eventually, it's a numbers game. There's just not that many girls. You would probably be the most successful, your program, but there were other ones that were really good. So what was going on in your time at the school?
Well, Dennis McIntosh, look at him. Are you talking all sports in general, or yeah, the girls' sports? Yeah, we've had good girls' sports.
Soccer team, good cross country, really good volleyball team.
We've had that. I'm not sure. I part of it is the conference we're in now. I feel is weak on the girls' end, so we're winning conference titles where maybe we wouldn't somewhere else. I mean, if I had my track team and ran in the MAC, I would not have as many conference titles as I did. But I think it was something that the girls' sports were popular. They were involved, and that was a great time. When Megan was in high school, you had the Peterson girls, and the Detweiler twins were playing softball. I mean, softball they had a great run too. So there was just some energy with the girls' sports, and I think Lene Cordell, she had great teams and really had those girls fired up and doing well. Dennis in basketball, I mean, he's been there way longer than I have. Andy Cottrell in soccer, there were just some really good programs, and I think we all worked well together, knowing we wanted these girls to be multi-sport athletes. We really had to work together to say, hey, I know she's got basketball this summer day. I'll lay off on cross country because you've got a 5-on-5 or whatever they do. I think we worked well together that way.
In the garage here in downtown Bellefontaine at the Craft Emporium, White Buckingham on the controls tonight. Ryan Harmon and the crew behind us having a good time. You're welcome to stop by. Our show is presented each Thursday night by Temp of Ohio Radon. I'm Bill Tipple filling in for Rick Reed. It's his show, In the Garage. What a great name for a sports talk show, by the way. We're with Ann Vogel, who's the retired West Liberty Salem cross country and track coach, talking about the Lady Tigers and their elite success. We'll get to track in a minute, Ann. coaches have a vision and they're good at motivating people and getting people to do things. When you're looking at a girl that's maybe in seventh, eighth, ninth grade, they've never run, what are you looking for at them, maybe physically, maybe their build, and just what you want to know about them to say, that's a girl I want?
Sometimes for me, it's not. I mean, obviously, you'll look at a girl walking down the hall and she's tall, and she jumps up and touches the clock on the wall, and you're like, oh, she could high jump for me. But what I really look for in girls that I would see walking down the hall would be some confidence, some spunk, someone that's having fun, that can kind of joke. Sometimes those quiet girls, you have to get them out of their shells. But these girls that walk down the hall, with their head held high, I'm like, I want that girl on my team because she's going to bring that confidence into whatever she does. So that's got some of the things I looked at, more internal than sometimes external. And obviously there's girls that are athletes. I mean, you can see them, but sometimes the girl that doesn't look like the athlete at all ends up being a great athlete. So I really tried to I look past, their physicality.
Her graduated in 2013. God, she's like 30 years old. I'm getting old. But great, we got to talk about her. She's a great runner. She's one of the all-time greats. Why was she so good?
So early on, she grew up going to meets. I mean, that's the start of it. She was at a cross country meet at, is it Routine Park? Is that the park by the pool? She was at the Logan County meet when she was, I believe, 13 days old, 2 weeks old, something like that. I wasn't coaching that year, but we took her to a meet. She loved the girls. She wanted to be with them. In fact, back when Matt and Megan were little, the girls would come to my house in the summer for cross country practice and would help me load the kids into my minivan, sometimes in their pajamas. Sometimes they'd even change a diaper for me, throw them a banana and a Pop-Tart or something, and the girls would go run. I'd follow with my kids in the car. So they grew up with it, and Megan really loved the girls and wanted to be them, emulate them in any way. But Megan, I think her success really came from, she was a student of the sport, and that was part of growing up with it, but she also did all the little things. I mean, she took her diet very seriously. She took sleep very seriously. She was a great teammate and encouraged everyone and wanted everyone to do the best. But she's someone that really gained. I mean, she was a good runner her freshman year. She didn't go to state her freshman year in track and anything. She didn't make it and ended up and she didn't make it. That's another funny thing. Her sophomore year, she made it to state in the 2 mile, didn't make it in the mile. And she didn't even get out of the district in the mile her sophomore year, and ends up winning the state meet in the mile her junior year. So it's just, she really trusted that process. I mean, in her work ethic, she was a hard worker. I didn't have to tell her. And obviously I'm her parent, so there might have been some influence there, like, I'm living with mom, I got to get up in the morning and do my run. But she loved it. And she's very passionate. And but the night before she won state, she went out. Kind of a neat story. She was probably seated third based on time coming in, and she went out in the driveway, and Jason was out in the driveway, I think, having a beer, and she said, "Dad, I'm winning tomorrow." And he's like, "Oh, that's great, Megan." I mean, we were just wanting her to get on the podium. We would have been happy with that. And she ends up running 10 seconds faster, breaks 5 minutes, but if she believed it. She said she was going to win. And that's exactly what she did. And that's hard for any of us to do, because there's a chance we fail, right?
Who would be, this is a tough question. You've had so many great ones, but I don't know if you had to name the all Coach Vogel team. I don't know how many girls that would be. I guess you could just name the whole team, all the teams. But who would be some of we talked about the guys, some of the 6, 7 big names. In the girls in all your years, who would be some of the big names?
Wow. So I would have to go with the Adams sisters, Megan and Grace. They were big names. I'm going to go with the state team first, but there's some great names from Megan's group too. Emily Holler, she was phenomenal. I mean, never ran track before, and she was phenomenal. Caitlin Stapleton, Maddie Bayhan, who just had a baby. Yeah, sweet little baby. Lydia Mayle was great in pole vault. She was a good little hurdler. Grace Estes. and then go to cross country, I would say we had Reagan Bolesky. There's so many. Shonda Ano, Jasmine Smith, and I know I'm missing some great names. Yeah, Amelia Miller. I mean, she's been an all Ohioan more recent times. That there's just been some phenomenal, runners throughout the years, and it's been fun to watch. I'm Mallory Boston. I mean, gosh, it's too hard, and I love them all too.
Retired in the spring of 24, so about not even. It's been less than a year. Did you know for a while like this was gonna be it?
I knew it was for probably 2 years, so maybe like 2022. I started thinking about it and like when was the best time. I also really wanted to take into consideration. I didn't who was going to succeed me, which was tough because no one really wanted to take the job. I mean, we had one person apply for the girls' track job. I'm like, we were fifth in the state in track last year. Who would not want this job? And people did not apply for it. But but I didn't want to leave the well dry either. I wanted to leave whoever was taking over with some athletes, with some talent. So the girls were fourth in state and cross country this year. I mean, Aaron Locke did a great job with them, and so I that played a big factor. But you get to a point where things happen in your life. My mom's in a nursing home. She had quite a few falls. So she's been in Green Hills for almost 2 years. Megan lives in Cincinnati. Our boys, Adam and Matt, live in Columbus, and just wanting to spend time with them and being available. And it's hard to be available and be able just to, at the drop of a hat, go somewhere when you've got a whole program like that and you're taking care of it. And my kids grew up with that. I mean, I sacrificed a lot of my family time, and the kids, I don't think they would say, Mom.
Say you'll know when. It's just kind of a feeling thing. It's hard to put into words and describe. Did you know when?
I knew, and really last year, I guess in 2023 in cross country, I knew that was going to be the time. I didn't want to say anything yet. I wanted to. I got through the season. I didn't want it to be a thing where the girls were talking all year like Ann's leaving. I told them at the banquet whether that was the right way to do it or not. I don't know, but I don't. The parents were there. We were finished, and I just said, I have an announcement I need to tell you. And I go, this is my last banquet. And the girls, some mouths dropped. I mean, I didn't even tell the coaching staff. The only one that knew was Morgan Sullivan. I was going to say Morgan Freihoff. There's another one I left off who's a great runner. But he knew ahead of time. I think I told him that day or maybe the day before that. But so it was time. And it worked out well because I was with all the girls. The parents were there. So it wasn't like I had to. It was the best time to do it instead of trying to call a meeting and some people couldn't come. Everyone was there. And
Anybody at the school, any parent, any administration, any athletes try to say, come on now, you got to think, try to swipe.
they still are. They still are. They are, but they understand. I think they understand. And yeah, at the beginning of cross country, I had some calls. I've had quite a few calls during track season. Like, are you sure you don't want to? But it's good, and the team's in good hands. Aaron and Mandy are coached, kind of a husband and wife duo team. They're coaching.
Girls cross country coach at West Authority Salem, Mandy Locke, the girls track coach. I guess we'll put some pressure on them. This is my next question. Do you think that the programs should be able to stay? I don't mean like winning state. I'm not getting a finish, but just be able to stay strong for.
I feel they should, and they have a great nucleus coming back. We lost some. We did, whether I was coaching, whoever was coaching. We lost a great group of seniors last year. So that would be, they're going to have to figure their way through that, and fill some positions that have been left. But they're going to do well. The boys have like 51 guys out for the team. They're huge. The girls' numbers are smaller. Yeah.
Vogel say, your husband last.
He was supportive. We've talked about, I even considered it when Megan graduated from high school. And then Alyssa Strickland, who's Alyssa Ward now, who teaches at Bell Fountain, she was kind of left. There was this group of seniors that Megan had a big senior class, and then Alyssa, who we called Nub, was left by herself. And I thought, I'm not going to do that to her senior year. I'll coach one more year. And then I'm like, you know what? Jason and I talked. He goes, keep doing it. The kids are great. I was still able to go to Megan's, cross country and track meets for the most part at Xavier. And so I kept coaching. I'm glad I did because, look what happened down the road. But you did, I kind of losing my track of your question, but yeah, I did know. And, but what did Jason say? That's right. He was supportive. He goes, this is your decision to make. And, he's sacrificed a lot as well. Like, I tried to have dinner ready for him, but it didn't always happen, right?
Minutes left here on In the Garage. We usually go for about an hour every Thursday night here at the Craft Emporium with retired Coach Ann Vogel, who's been a great guest, putting up with all these tedious questions, historical questions. We could write a book. I tell Don Hensley, who's a really good friend of mine, really good friend of Ann's, he wrote a book on Lou Brunswick, who won 5 state titles. He needs to Don needs to get with you and write a book.
We have too much fun.
Book on you. Be a lot of some of these same stories here would probably make her book. Let's talk about West Liberty Salem girls track. The same school year you became the head cross country coach and the head track coach. Is that right?
I became the head track coach first. I was the head track coach in '92, and then coached middle school cross country that fall. And yeah, so
Start.
So I got my start.
Okay. Are they similar? I mean, I know it's running, but track's got other. I think it's 16 events. Are they kind of similar jobs or not really? Some people might like cross country and not be great at track.
right. I mean, track is. There's a lot more to handle and organize and take care of. I mean, you have throwers and jumpers and pole vaulters and hurdlers, so there's a lot of organization. For cross country, we might have, I might have Megan Adams who can run an 18:30 and Susie Smith who's running 25 minutes. Well, we're doing a similar workout, but Megan's probably running more mileage than Susie is. And Susie, if we're doing 400 repeats, Megan's running more repeats than Susie. So, but that's a lot easier to manage. In track, there is a lot to handle. And I love cross country. It's fun and it's one race and you're done. But track was really what I enjoyed coaching. I love the challenges of, there were so many. Emily Holler's a great example. She played club soccer when she ran. So we had to be really careful with her. I couldn't run her into the ground, and she had 2 soccer practices a week and maybe a big soccer match on Sunday, and we had to meet on Friday. I had to manage it so she had fresh legs. And so we wanted to keep her healthy because the state meet was what mattered. So there were meets that she didn't run as much because she had soccer practice on Tuesday because they had some big match on Sunday in Cleveland, let's say. So I love that stuff, like the science of it. And,
Track meet, I don't know it nearly like Coach Vogel. It's like organized chaos. Just even trying to watch all this stuff, you got to get here and there, and it is something. I don't know that I can think of another high school of sport that is like track, where it's just you really have to know what you're looking for as a parent to get here to there. Watch it if your kids in.
Talk about chaos because a lot of junior high coaches don't know what they're doing, and then you get kids. The first junior high meet we always host at home, I literally want to strangle children because they don't know because their coaches don't tell them. So they're like, where's the start of the mile? Where's the start of this? They're wandering around and they're middle school kids. And
your track resume. This is from Coach Reed again, who loves history. 19 conference titles, right?
Yeah, I thought the more.
But
All right, well.
That could be.
All right.
Confused.
5 district titles, sound right?
Sounds right.
2 regional titles.
Right.
State champs in 19 and 21. And if you've already given me this story, I'll say it. If there's no COVID in 20, because everything got shut down for spring sports all across Ohio, 20.
We had
Back from the 2019 team. Right.
You'd be right up there with Ken Lehman in that regard as far as that small window of elite success. But 2019, you win. Did you think that team could win it?
Well, I knew we had great athletes. Emily Holler came out. Well, Gabby Holler comes to me and she says, hey, I need to be in shape. She was going to go on and play soccer at West Virginia at that time. She goes, I need to be in shape. Would you be willing to come out for the team? I can't always be here. I'm like, yeah, I'll work with you. Gabby's a great kid, hard worker. And so then since Gabby did it, Emily said she would do it, and they're competitors. They grew up playing soccer and basketball. So we went to a meet. I knew we would be good, but the first meets I don't really load the events. You kind of try to figure where people fit in. And we went to Miami East, and we won the meet pretty easily. And Miami East coach, well, he's at Butler now, but Jason Sutherland came up to the bus. I was getting on the bus. He goes, "You guys are going to win state." And I went, "What?" And he goes, "You're going to win state." And I started really looking at, I don't get too bogged down on other people's stats. I can't control what they're doing. I want to control what I can do with my team. So I really started digging into other team stats in the next couple of weeks. And I'm like, we are really good and we have some depth. So we figured out, by the conference meet, just looking, I knew Archibald had a really good team. There were some teams that were perennial powerhouses that were a little down that year, and we just everything. I mean, we started the meet with their girls winning the 4x8. We gotten beat by Minster at the regional meet the week before, and the girls came up to me, another example of just having confidence at the regional meet after the awards ceremony. They give awards to each after each event. The 4 girls, it was Megan Adams, Grace Adams, Maddie Bayhan, Caitlin Stapleton. They said, we're winning the 4x8 next week. And I was like, okay, you can do it. And they went out, and it was one of the most enjoyable races, just how competitive those girls were. And they went out, and except for one small portion of the race, we led from the gun.
And that kind of set the tone. Everyone else was fired
What,
up.
I knew you were going to bring up Emily Holler, and her dad was the longtime boys basketball coach at West Liberty Salem. He's now an assistant coach for Dennis McIntosh. I always kid Dennis. He's got like the best staff going with all these assistants, and I think he has Stan King. I think Stan's daughter. He's got all the all-star helpers, and Dennis is great too. But then I will have to talk about Emily Holler's mom, Kim Holler, and if you follow girls basketball, Pickerington Central. I mean, one of the all-time great Division I programs. She played basketball there, played soccer at OU. So, genetics don't lie. I mean,
Kim was
Great track and field athlete. It just wasn't her favorite, but she was a really good 800 runner from what I've heard.
Emily Holler, what did she do? What were her events?
she ran
400, the 200, and was on our 4x200 relay and 4x400 relay. She did 4 events, and she, her sophomore year, 4x2, she won it for us. I mean, all the girls did great. Everyone did their job, but it was us and Cincinnati Country Day. It was at the wire. It was one of the most exciting races, and I mean, just that competitive spirit kicked in, and she beat this. I mean, if you look at the finish line still at the picture, you can't tell who won. I don't know how they picked that, but finish timing does a great. They have the cameras and do all that, but
21 state champs.
Right.
Did you know that you're going in?
that year we were pretty confident that we would win. Mount Gilead had a team. They had one really good athlete, and why can I not think of her name?
she could jump, but
She ran the hurdles, but also won the 800. She ran like under 210. She's at Penn State. She's at Penn State. Why can't I think of her name? But anyway, she was phenomenal, and we knew she could win 4 events by herself. And our team was more, we're scraping those, but she didn't win the hurdles. She won the 800. Their 4x8 won. Our 4x8 was second that year, but we ended up winning. We just had more depth. We had more people and more events than they had. So at the end, it was tied going into the last event, but we had the best 4x4 team, and they didn't have a 4x4 team. So.
Your team or athlete has a rival or a couple rivals?
Minster, but their coach Jesse Magato is a dear friend, and I think a lot of people feel we're very similar in our coaching styles. But I mean, Minster was a big rival. I mean, really not so much in our conference. I mean, Fort Laramie's a rival, but also great. Like, I love their coaches. Those were the big ones. I mean, when we ran against Archibald at state, we'd never seen them before. That
good. I can't think of her name either.
I'm getting old, Bill, and I have menopause, but anyway,
But here, do you still go to like the school just to watch stuff?
I've gone to see things and went to cross country meets, and I did not make a basketball game this year. We just had a bunch of stuff. My sister was up for Arizona for like almost a month.
I did not go to any football.
Okay.
Sorry, I love Dan and the staff, but I did not. I follow them and I watch their games, but yeah, I didn't go. Sitting at games is a little, especially when it's cold, is not my favorite. If I could go on the sidelines and walk around, I'd probably be more interested.
So need to make it maybe a little bit warmer. Any big plans? Just a couple final questions here with Coach Vogel on in the garage. Any big plans? I know you're busy with your mom, Jason, your two kids, but any other big plans you see in life for the next few years?
Big plans? Pa, oh no, I had been asked by a few universities to coach. Urbana University was one of them, if I wanted to help, but I'm not necessarily interested in that. I really enjoy planting my flowers. I know that doesn't sound like a big plan, and cooking and just being a mom. Hope I'm gonna maybe have some grandkids. We'll see.
Up with a real highlight. This made national news. I'm going to go back about 12 years ago with Megan Vogel. It may have been 13 years ago. I don't know if it's 2012 or 2013.
It was 2012. It was your junior
Junior year. She wins the state championship in the 1600 or the 1 mile. Then I don't think there was much downtime. She had to run in the 3200. That's like right away. That's got to be not a good time. She was not going to finish very highly in that race. I mean, she's still one of the best in the state, but was not the same as her success she had just moments ago in the 1600. And then I'll let you fill in the blank for those that have not heard the story, because it was an amazing story. I'm going to have the mom take it away to close the show.
Going back to that mile to start, that was a huge win. She beat Tammy Berger, who we had figured. Tammy Berger ran for Versailles, went on to run at Ohio State. She coaches at Versailles now. But Tammy, I think we figured out Tammy was a year older, but from cross country, from middle school into high school, Tammy had beaten Megan in different races 38 times or something crazy. Megan had never beaten Tammy. And, Tammy kind of took the lead with a lap to go. And on the backstretch, Megan just poured on this kick and won. So it was emotional for me. And then she broke 5 minutes. Like that was not on my radar. I knew she'd ran a 5:08 before that. So I knew she could, cut some time. But at that time of the year, you're not dropping 10 seconds in a mile usually. So she beats that. So it's pretty emotional. We're all emotional. Her grandmas are in the stands. So she runs the 2 mile. And for the first couple laps, she's in the mix. She's probably 8th. I'm like, okay, just hang there, let everyone else do the work. She came around the 3rd lap and she looked at me and was going, I don't have it. And I go, just finish. So she's running. I'm not even really paying attention to the race. I'm talking to another coaching friend who coaches at Rio now, but Jordan Cunningham. And, we're talking and he goes, this is like she'd run by and I'd say, good job. But, I just was proud of her for what she did. So she runs by the last lap and Jordan and I continue talking. He goes, Ann, look up at the screen. And there's Megan. I'm in the backstretch, so I don't have a really good view of it. I'm seeing more from the screen. She's picked up this girl, and the crowd's just going nuts. It's the biggest applause I'd ever heard at a state meet, Megan doing that. And so I run around, try to get around to the front side of the track, and she's, exhausted, and she didn't really think much of it. Neither of us. I mean, it was nice that she did it. She's done it lots of times in her career, not necessarily in the race, but after someone's gone down at the end of the race, she's picked him up, and so it was nice. And we
Flat out get exhausted, or
exhaustion. It wasn't even that hot that day. She might have been dehydrated. I know she ended up in the tent. That's how really emotional. When you toe the line, you're not with your team usually in a race, so it's you against all these people. She was just a sophomore. She was young, had never been there before. And, sometimes I think it's just a combination of emotions and Arlington. Yeah, just right up the road on 68 before you get to Findlay. I think their boys basketball, someone was good. But
4 lost to Rushi in the state semis.
Yeah.
So, but we didn't think much about it, and we were more excited that she won a state title, and got home, went to graduation parties, and again, we were just talking about her winning a state title. It wasn't really about her picking up the girl, but then and Damon can talk about this. Someone tweeted it, and then it got online.
Off, and she won a national award for this, I believe.
The Musial Award, named after Sam Musial. She got the Jack Kelly Fair Play Award from the Olympics. Lou Holtz has had this was the most fun. Lou Holtz had the Do Right Award. It's down in Steubenville, and it was like hanging out with a bunch of Italian guys, and there was like polka bands, but they had who was Phil Necro got honored, but so it was, in this guy who owns Figueretti's, like pasta sauce, Figueretti's restaurant. He's like, Phil Necro, he's a friend of mine. And I mean, that was a fun night because you didn't know what to expect. But so yeah, she won quite a few awards and got recognition and really didn't think, but her quote was, someone said something about doing something with humanitarian. It was a humanitarian effort, and she goes, "No, Harriet Tubman, who has been her idol since she was a little girl. I mean, she literally had a Harriet Tubman doll." She said, "No, Harriet Tubman's a humanitarian or something," and that kind of clicked. But she learned a lot. She even learned how to. A guy from ABC talked to her about when she got interviewed, to say, if he said, "What did you have for breakfast?" Don't just say, "I had pancakes." Say, "I had pancakes for breakfast." So he kind of talked to her about how to do TV interviews. And so it was a neat experience. And people found us. I mean, some Canadian television station found my mom in West. I mean, my mom doesn't have the same last name as Jason. Fox News found Jason Reliant. They called Reliant, where the company Jason owned. It was interesting how people can find you.
If they're on the hunt for something, so. What a great story, though. What a great story. Coach, thanks for coming on.
Phil?
That was great. Still need to get the Don for this book on how it's done. Big Orange Memoirs with Coach Vogel, I think, is the title that is going through my mind right now. I think Coach Reed will be back next Thursday for In the Garage. He kind of books the guests. I think occasionally calls me when he can't get anybody else. I've been on a couple times this year. And he'll have some great historical show or historical idea. If you like to follow Rick, you could do it on social media. It's under Garage Sports. He did, I've not read this yet, maybe Hoyt did, but they did a baseball preview on Bellefontaine baseball. First of all, the graphics, I don't know who does this stuff. It was phenomenal. And if I remember right, Bellefontaine is one of like the all-time winningest baseball teams in Ohio history, like top 15, top 20.
I wasn't even thinking it was higher than that. I listened to his show with Russ Hogue, and I was amazed at how well they. That says something.
Coach Hogue, he needs to come on now. Season starts. Season is Saturday against Anna. They open up against the Anna Rockets. So, but anyways, thanks to Coach Reed for what he does. Top of Ohio Radon is our sponsor. 937-935-2806. Radon is a silent killer. Make sure your house or your business does not have it. If it does have it, get rid of it with Paul Newland. He'll take care of it. And we thank Brian Harmon and his crew here at the Craft Emporium in downtown Bellefontaine. If you've never been to the Craft, they have a little bit of everything. And they've expanded here one spot over to the west where now you can come in and kind of hang out and drink the beer and kind of reminisce like we do here on our show In the Garage. For Hoyt Buckingham and Ann Vogel and Rick Reed, I'm Bill Tipple saying so long.